that is where he is going to be drafted and what his draft stock is irrelevant in my mind to this line movement. Now, I understand why a lot of people would say that and would point to that. Far more relevant to me, regardless of where he is going to be chosen in terms of the draft when that happens in April, is what did Kentucky look like with a competent quarterback in Will Levis versus what did they look like offensively last week without a competent quarterback?
It was rough. That poor kid was not ready.
They lost by 10 that's not a good South Carolina team. Mississippi State's a pretty good team. At least, that's what the results bear out. If they had announced today that he wasn't going to play, do you think that line might have jumped to 10, 12 points?
Probably.
I don't know if it would have gotten to 12. I think 10 absolutely would have made sense.
Yeah.
Here's my question for you. Do you love Mississippi State laying only 4 points, Will Levis or not, based on what you've seen from Mississippi State and based on what you've seen from Kentucky?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. I mean, I think State's going to win the game. So, yeah, I would take State and give those points.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't see how you can say otherwise after the last 2 weeks.
Well, and what did I mean, you remember, I don't know if we talked about it on the air, maybe very, very briefly, but you and I talked about it last week, hey, Dad, and it wasn't like some definitive, Mississippi State's getting their butt kicked in Lexington. It was more like, brother, that place is going to be on fire, and that is a really difficult place to play, and that crowd is worth some points, and it's at night.
And that's when we thought Kentucky was going to beat South Carolina and then, not have all this extra stuff going on. And then that happened.
As I have thought about it more, that crowd did nothing for Kentucky last week because it was on fire at the beginning of that ball game. And then they just couldn't do anything offensively. And so taking a little bit more into account with regard to what we've seen from Kentucky, Will Levis or not, the offensive line is still not good. They've given up a gazillion sacks this season. We know Mississippi State is talented on the defensive side. We know that Zach Arnett is kind of like a blood-in-the-water guy. When he smells it, he's attacking. I think Mississippi State will attack defensively. I should know the answer to this, but I don't. In terms of the way Martin Emerson lines up, is he just a right corner? I'm sorry, Emmanuel Forbes.
Emmanuel Forbes, okay.
In terms of the way that Emmanuel Forbes lines up, is he just the right corner or the left corner? Kind of like the way is, like in terms of wide receiver, you play this position, period. Or can they say, Emmanuel Forbes, if Barry Brown goes to the restroom, you go with him?
I think that the way they line up is it's based on where the hash is. Like you have was the field corner and the boundary corner, and I don't know which one of those he is, but he's one of them. So where he's lining up is kind of predetermined.
Okay.
Can't help but wonder if they'd consider changing that, right? Just because Kentucky,
that's why I'm asking that question.
I've been asking that question since Nico Whitley was covering Dante Moncrief in the 2012 Egg Bowl. Like, why can they just not put Banks or Slay on that guy?
I mean, that's what they do in the NFL. I mean, to use the Saints as an example, Marshawn Lattimore, they decide who the best wide receiver is, and Marshawn, when they break the huddle, goes to where he is. Doesn't matter where he is on the field. Doesn't matter if he's in the slot, outside right, outside left, wide side, short side. Marshawn covers the best player.
It's what you did when you were playing two-hand touch football at recess in 5th grade. Who's the best receiver? Go where he is. That's who you're covering. With whoever
Football's
your best.
Really simple at the root of it. It really is. Put your best on their best.
Isn't the key here, breaking more at 11, don't turn the football over, but in this game in particular, with the offensive styles, Hayden and I talked about this a little bit. People hear air raid and think that it's an offense that will make games feel long, and that's not really the case because it's a high completion offense, and their time of possession is quite good. Same thing with Kentucky. Kentucky is slow. They move slow. They take every second of the play clock, and possessions are at a premium. So any mistake that you make is going to be magnified 5 times over because your possessions are going to be far fewer than most games you play. Ole Miss, again, had 4 possessions in the second half of the Kentucky game. 4! That's all they had. And one of them went 3 and out. So your offense is going to be off the field often when you play Kentucky. So in this game, if you make mistakes, if you give them a free first down, or if you give them a turnover or something, it's going to be much more impactful because they don't give you the football back. Even their 3 and outs take 2.5 minutes. They really milk the clock with the way they play. And so mistakes are going to be magnified.
And hey, Dad, I know I heard you talking about this earlier this week on the maybe it was in your conversation with Cole Kubelik. I don't remember, but that is a pace that Mississippi State you think is okay with?
Yeah, State's not uncomfortable playing the slow game, playing time of possession. They're more than happy. They're not Ole Miss. Ole Miss wants to play tempo and get to the line of scrimmage as quickly as possible. You tell State we're going to, milk the clock down to 20, 25 seconds. Okay. They'll take that all day, especially on offense.
Yeah. Are you confused? Like there's part of me in looking at this game that's confused. It's like everything about me says Mississippi State's just a better football team than Kentucky. They are more complete on offense. They're better on the offensive line. They're better at every position, I think, on the defensive side. Weaver's a really good player. Jordan Wright's a really good player. They got some guys on the defensive side, but certainly as a unit, Mississippi State defensively is better than Kentucky is. Special teams probably give the, on the surface, I would give the edge to Kentucky because of the freshman Brown and just the speedster he is. But Mississippi State's been really, really good in the return game.
And State has Tulu Griffin and Xavier Thomas. So
yeah. Both teams have had issues kicking with extra points and with field goals. I just feel like Mississippi State is better, and yet for some reason I still have a little pause with Will Levis coming back. A small pause.
Do I have pause? Find out after this.
I had a lot of pause about it a week ago. I fully kind of embraced the fact that I think Mississippi State goes in and takes care of business. I don't know that I'm necessarily swayed by the news that Will Levis is going to play. I don't really think that changes anything in terms of believing that Mississippi State is a better team than Kentucky is, and yet there's something about this. And hey, Dad, it's not even the whole Mike Leach teams lose a game sometimes that you don't expect them to. It's not even that. It's just like kind of a weird feeling, like when there's such an overwhelming amount of confidence in one team going into a game against teams that are reasonably matched, close to evenly matched, that sometimes we end up looking foolish. So, do you have any pause about it?
No, I don't. And
in fairness, you spent the entire summer predicting that Kentucky was going to win this game.
It's a full 180. Back in June, July, I said Kentucky was going to beat both Mississippi schools. Watching them play against Ole Miss and their inability to move the football, that Levis wasn't able to make. I'm still baffled. There was a tweet that somebody sent out, like, this is why the scouts love Will Levis. And it was the play, I think it was in the first quarter, where he's got a wide open guy, and he overthrows him by like 5 yards. Now, it's a good deep ball, but he missed an open receiver. And it's like, why are we pointing this out as a positive? It should have been a touchdown. And then, their offensive line woes, I can't take them seriously. They can't block anybody. So against an aggressive Mississippi State defense, yeah, I think State's going to have the upper hand in this game. I feel pretty confident about that.
Where do you fall on this?
I think they're going to win the game. Although, I had somebody say to me last night that they should win by 17 plus, and I thought, hold on.
Okay.
I know that they've got offensive line issues, and they are issues, and they're real. And I know their quarterback, although he's playing, is he going to be 100%? Doesn't feel like it. But if you think that anybody's just going to go on the road at a Mark Stoops coached Kentucky at night and just waltz on to victory, I think you've got another thing coming. Now, again, I think State's going to win the game. I have no reason to not think that. But they're going to have to work for it. This is a Kentucky defense that's going to be disciplined. They're not going to miss assignments. It's going to take work. It's going to be a very fast game on your watch, but a very slow game to watch. Kentucky's going to play disciplined, sound football. They're going to tackle well. They're going to be schemed well. State's going to have to work for this one. I think they will, and I think they will win, but it's going to be tough. Going on the road to Kentucky, I know what happened last week. I watched it almost every snap. But it's not going to be an easy thing for Mississippi State to do. It's going to be a hell of a lot harder than this past Saturday was. No doubt.
Kentucky has allowed 25 sacks this season.
I mean, it's and
all right. So somebody said a second ago, don't compare the defenses because the defenses aren't playing each other. I understand that. I do. I was kind of talking about like overall units and who you thought was better. So in comparison, Kentucky sacks allowed versus sacks made, they've given up 25 sacks. That's 4.17 sacks per game. They have a total of 9 sacks themselves. That's like 1.2 a game. They're not protecting the quarterback, and they are not getting to the quarterback. And I got to be honest, that's a recipe for disaster against Mississippi State. When you can't protect your guy against an aggressive defense, and you can't get to a guy who is incredibly accurate, it's like I'm talking myself away from that pause that I had. Hey, Dad.
Yeah. Everything you look at, I know games aren't played on paper, but everything on paper says State should win this game easily.
So what's the so Borky? What is the balance to that makes you think it's not going to be easy?
Because is it ever?
It's hard to win.
It's hard to win. It's hard to win on the road in the SEC. And again, I know South Carolina did it last week, but that was without Levis. And Levis does make a difference regardless of how bad his offensive line is. When he's protected, he can do well. Again, I'm going to pick spoiler, ruining our 5 o'clock segment on Friday. I'm taking State in the points. I think they're going to cover and win. But I do think a team that is as disciplined and fundamentally sound as Kentucky is, especially defensively, is going to make you work for it. They're going to grind the game to a halt, and they're going to make you work for it. And if they're the ones that make mistakes, they'll lose. They made mistakes against South Carolina. They lost the game. Yeah, their backup quarterback stunk, but if they play cleaner, they win. In Oxford, they made mistakes. They lost. In Gainesville, Florida made mistakes. They won.
Yeah.
So it's never easy, especially there. They're going to be well coached. They tackle well. I mean, I don't know if Jacquez Jones is back or not, but
he is not on their 2 deep this week.
Okay, so that's
and did not play last week.
Unfortunate for the young man, but that's a positive for State.
Big loss. Here's what I would say. What game did Kentucky play their best in? Florida? Do they play their best against Ole Miss? I would say no. So probably Florida, right? State played its best game of the season against Texas A&M. If both teams play their best game, who wins?
Mississippi State.
They win pretty easily, I would think.
A couple touchdowns or more.
Yeah. So, I mean, the script on Kentucky has just flipped entirely. They were a top 10 team 2 weeks ago, and now I talked today to John Hale of the Lexington Herald Leader. I mean, they play State. They still have Tennessee and Georgia left.
Yeah.
So they've gone from top 10 and, hey, maybe we could sneak into the Sugar Bowl to 7-5, and the Music City Bowl would be a great destination.
So Kentucky's sitting at 4-2 with this game against Mississippi State. If we assume that they lose that, they're 4-3. Then an open date before they go to Tennessee. Nobody's picking Kentucky to win that game. All right, so that's even at 4-4. You're going to pick them to win against Missouri and against Vanderbilt. So that's 6 wins. You're going to pick them to lose at home against Georgia. That's 6-5. And then they've got a rivalry game against Louisville. And Louisville at times has looked good and at times has looked like garbage.
Satterfield might be coaching for his job in that game against for Louisville. So
he may not have it by then.
Highly motivated. Yeah.
Which Louisville had a good win this past week.
They did.
They fell behind early and then really got it rolling and played well the rest of the way.
Without Cunningham, too. Everybody's quarterback's hurt. Knock on wood. Knock on wood. We've got healthy quarterbacks here. Knock on wood.
Don't say it out loud. Don't say it out loud.
What are you doing?
I knocked on wood.
C-Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Cole in Hattiesburg, the crowd was kind of taken out of the game in Lexington last weekend with that first play from South Carolina's defense. That's true. But it takes more than one play to take an entire crowd out of the ballgame. I mean, that pulls a little air out of the balloon right out of the gate, but you can get that back in a hurry. But they're down 7 at the half and did nothing offensively. Jeff in Oxford, if Kentucky was ever what folks thought they were earlier this season, then they are due to get back on track. Somebody says, Richard, that feeling is the rebel inside you. Hashtag Hail State. There are some laughy emojis there. Okay.
Going back to that previous tweet, though, I don't think Kentucky was what we thought they were 2-3 weeks ago when they were a top 10 team.
It won't be easy for State for 2 to 3 quarters, but they will pull away. Turn the ball over early and allow Kentucky to believe they can win and things could get different. I doubt it. State and the points easy. Okay?
It's never easy.
Worth noting that in the same message, it says it won't be easy, and then State wins easy. Just point that out.
Dale in the Delta, I feel like Arnett is going to have the same game plan he had against A&M and bring heat constantly. Jaquez Jones is out, and Key, their second-best receiver, has a sprained wrist. Somebody points out this as well. The pause is State is a different team at home versus on the road. State is better than LSU, but they found a way to lose that game, and this is a must-win for Kentucky after losing 2 straight with Tennessee and Georgia still on the schedule.
What I would say to that is LSU is far more talented than Kentucky is.